Okay, everybody agree to it so everybody can stay on board. Okay, with that, I want to welcome everybody again to our third meeting, and this is the Cable, Internet, and Telecommunications Advisory Committee. This is the meeting of September 21, our third meeting. We're convening at what time is it now? 9:03, and just a quick attendance. Again, I'm Bob Dwyer. I'm the chair. Let's see, Jed Johnson is here. Brian McCarter is here. Wendy Howland is here. John Frank is here. And our sponsor, I guess it is. What's your official title, Anne-Marie? Anne-Marie Sarunian from the Select Board is our maybe.
I'm an ex officio. I'm just a liaison.
Oh, liaison is a great term.
Yeah.
Ex officio liaison to the Select Board. We've gotten apologies from Tony Centrino. He has a doctor's appointment that got rescheduled this morning, and Catherine is coming as soon as she can get off her 8:30 work conference call. So we have a quorum, so we're going to convene. With that, what I would like to do is, first of all, do we have any guests who are on board? I don't see any guests there. Okay. Any members of the public. If you do sign on, just wave a little bit so we can acknowledge you. First, I'd like to just ask for anyone who has comments on Wendy's very nice set of draft minutes for this meeting. I saw a couple of people who said this, that they pretty much approve that. Any comments or changes? Okay, seeing none.
Awesome.
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
Awesome, I said.
Yep. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 14th.
Okay, Jed.
Seconded.
Who is that, John?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes from September 14th?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is just go down. I've aligned as much as I can the agenda with the action tracker. And next time, by Wendy's suggestion, I'll make sure that the numbering is consistent between the two, so that it's much easier to read both. Catherine was to have turned in a draft of the letter for discussion, and she said the letter is coming imminently. And has anybody seen it on email? I'm not watching. Okay. With that, I am going to postpone item A until later in the meeting when Catherine's on board. And action items 2 and 3 basically are liaison with the Cape Cod Technology Council Broadband Committee, and then with activities from other towns. And Brian, anything new with the Technology Council?
No updates since last week's call.
Okay. The one item that will come up a little later is that Steve Smith, who's been one of our contacts there, has been active in trying to get some expansion of the listening session, and we'll get to that. That's further down on the agenda.
Got that.
Okay, Jed, any activities on any of the towns?
No, the only thing I'll note, so Falmouth received 4 RFIs, and they said they're in the process of analyzing them.
Oh, we made a referral for a 5th one to Falmouth.
I'm sorry, you said Falmouth. My internet is really sucky today, just for a change. My speed test gave me between 1.9 and 2.96.
Yeah.
So
you
said you indeed. This started last night. I couldn't watch PBS because it kept freezing up. So you said Falmouth got what?
Falmouth received 4 responses to the RFI, and Brian and I exchanged emails with another vendor. I forget her name. That they were a Swedish company. It was actually Poly, but they're a Swedish company that does software for open access. And we suggested that she just fill it out and send it in. But essentially, they'll be going through a review process for the next couple of weeks. That's the only thing I of note.
Yep. Jed, one question for you, or perhaps a suggestion, and I throw this out for discussion. We're going to talk in a little bit about Verizon's apparent expansion down across the canal, down in towards Monument Beach. Okay, if it's true Verizon fiber to the home, fiber to the user, then clearly that would solve some of the problems, some of the deficits in that area. My next question would be if any of these responders to the RFI express misgivings about the economy of scale, maybe not enough customers, would it be worth broaching the idea, and not an offer, and an idea that perhaps they expand further north into the southern part of Bourne, up to the area where FiOS is going to serve, and that might get them some more customers, get them a bigger customer base, allow them, whoever the responder is, to base a one permanent repair guy on the Cape, something like that.
Well, it makes tons of sense. I mean, there's a couple of things to consider. One is that MLPs themselves are restricted to the boundaries, geographical boundaries of the municipality. However, you can create a co-op between 2 MLPs. So if Bourne were to create an MLP, Falmouth had an MLP, then the responders could basically form a co-op and run one network across the geographical boundaries. And that's basically what Whip City Fiber does.
Okay.
That's how they operate.
Question to Brian. Brian, is that how Taunton operates? Because they're well outside the boundaries of the city of Taunton.
Yeah, they're well outside the boundaries. I don't know. I think they in their words, and I haven't looked at the legal documents, they said as long as they see a business case to go outside their town, they'll do it. So how they structure it legally, I don't know, but I'm sure they've figured it out after they've been in business long enough.
See, my suspicion is that because they've been doing power to all these towns, that they formed an MLP and then a co-op back when they did electricity.
It's likely, I would presume that's what they're doing as well, given that. And most of the towns have small MLPs for the power, so it's probably a 90% chance that's how they're doing it.
Right, and the other comment we got from Taunton is they, quote unquote, they have their own poles. So that even sort of extends the thought that they basically formed MLPs, and then a co-op, and then put up their own light poles.
We can ask them. That might be a good reason to circle back. Like, what's your legal structure? We haven't talked to them in a while, so it'd be a perfectly good, olive branch out there to talk.
Okay. It'd be a good idea to identify what that structure is. Jed, if an opportunity comes up, and it sounds like, again, some of the companies that are responding to this RFI are looking for a bigger economy of scale, to go north or maybe to go further east. Those would be connections that would be worth exploring at the very least.
Yep.
Okay.
Should we maybe introduce Falmouth to some of the parties we talked to in order to help them because some kind of partnership with them is probably going to be very likely along the southern border of Bourne. Should we probably refer them all the resources we have?
Yeah.
Like Taunton, introduce them to Taunton.
They already have a meeting with Taunton scheduled. In fact, it might have happened already.
Okay, and probably introduce them to Matrix.
Yeah, that one surprises me. I'll check with them on that.
Surprises in that was not one of the responders to the RFI?
Yeah. I might check with Chris Lynch too to see if he even knew about the RFI.
Yeah. They were, very open to us, without considering money, logistics, et cetera. But conceptually, they were very open when we talked to them, geez, a year ago.
Yep. Okay.
That was an interesting company.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting group.
Okay. So, Jed, you've got the helm pretty much on any discussions with Falmouth Net or the MLP. If anything formal comes up, feel free to propose something that's a more formal meeting that we can again put up an agenda for, and then get online, et cetera, for.
Okay.
Are there meetings online? Do they?
No.
Or they
No,
just do them
they're
in
during
person?
the week in downtown.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Now to action item 4. I got a confirmation yesterday from Steve Tupper that they would like to make their presentation on October 5 at 9 a.m. Okay, that's our regular meeting time. They want to do it completely online, just to allow they can get multiple people on their staff on board as needed for this presentation. I said that we would have other business to conduct, so they ideally they wouldn't take 2 hours of time here as they did at their initial meeting. So he's amenable to that. We will probably.
We've already reviewed their slides, so they shouldn't have to do it de novo.
Right. Oh, there's no problem there. But it's more. This is the way forward. They want to just go over briefly what they had come up with before, highlight the digital equity deficits that they've already identified from the Microsoft and other data. And then they want to talk about their outreach and how we can help with their outreach to all of the other stakeholders who are out there that exist in groups. One example being that they're going to meet with the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe, probably with he didn't say, but probably with Melissa and Troy and some of the other leaders of the tribe, to talk specifically about what their deficits are in Bourne. And they have a parallel study going on in Sandwich, so presumably the same meeting would talk about the tribe members who live in Sandwich who have underservice or lack of service issues, talking about using the Council on Aging, talking about the Housing Authority, et cetera. And we just want to make sure that their list is comprehensive when they bring that up. So after an initial just overview of what Wendy and I saw and what all of you saw on the slide packet that was distributed last week, we would then go into the way forward, and this leads to a public engagement meeting. I won't use their term, Wendy, because I hate it and you hate it. A public engagement meeting on November 13th, where the whole world is invited to come in and tell how bad their internet service is. And it'll be on the internet. Okay. Yeah. Comment from someone. Anyone?
So people who don't have any internet won't be able to come anyway.
Well, they'll be able to come into the room, whatever that room will be.
Yeah. Well, we also got an email from MBI. Wendy, maybe you want to talk about that as far as.
Well, I was going to get to that.
Or is it further down on the agenda?
It is. But
we'll get to.
We're good with that. So. And that I'm sorry, you said that was November 13th?
The public engagement is November 13th. I don't know what hour. I don't know where. I would presume it's in the community, Veterans Community Building. It could be someplace like the media room in the high school, because that's been set up for. That's a decent place to hold public meetings.
Yeah, we probably also want to try to have a meeting on the Cape side of the canal, because the mainland side tends to have less issues. So you probably want the meeting where the issues are. So I'd probably push for a Cape side location as well, especially given traffic getting there. So we might get less attendance from the people with the most problems.
Yeah, November 13th is after the shutdown, or the strangulation, I should say, of the Bourne Bridge is complete.
The throttling, yes.
Throttling it, shall we say. But again, they managed to finish the Sagamore Beach a little ahead of time. Sagamore Bridge. The next question is, can they do the same for the Bourne Bridge? And again, if this meeting happens in the evening or something like that, that's okay. If it happens at 3 p.m, getting across the bridge, at least my experience in the last day, has been impossible.
Yeah.
I went across twice this week. Well, actually 3 times. I had 2 doctor's appointments and went out to dinner last night. Midday, you can pull it off if you know the back roads to get up to the bridge. You know, if you go winding around Sandwich Road. But yesterday we wanted to go out to dinner in Mattapoisett, and it started backing up on County Road like before you hit Monument Beach going north. It was just backed up all the way through, and it took like 20, 25 minutes. Once I was across the bridge, it was fine. It's not good. We just have to hope weather.
I take my husband to Plymouth on Mondays and Wednesday mornings, and we normally leave. He has to be at the Mayflower at 9, so we usually leave around 8:15, stop at the Market Basket, pick up coffee, and get him there in plenty of time. We've been leaving at 7:45 now, and we generally make it almost on time.
Well, again, I'll discuss this with Tupper with regard to a venue, but because he's also I believe, as VP of the Cape Cod Commission, he's also responsible for transportation. So he ought to be well aware of what's going on at the bridge, and another call it a transportation deficit instead of a transportation equity deficit instead of digital equity deficit problem. Okay.
But even if they do have the bridge fixed, I think it would send a good message if they did have the meeting on this side of the canal.
Yeah.
You know,
it's showing recognition for where the problem is.
Yes. And, you know, the high school is here, right? Isn't the high school here?
Yeah.
Yes, I looked.
Okay. That would be the media room in the high school would be set up for something like this.
So if assuming Monument Beach is going to get fixed, you know, by Verizon, the problem area is going to be Pocasset and Sagamore Beach and the Sagamore chunk over. Buzzards Bay is performing at least at broadband speeds. It's not great, but yeah. So and we need to be someplace that's on Open Cape's backbone to be reliable. So the school, library, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we also
I'm sorry.
Katoman has to be included.
Did I hear? Yeah. Did I hear you say that they were going to be expanding fiber to the home in Mo Beach Comcast, or was that a miss?
I'm sorry. FiOS is supposedly going in Mo Beach, with to be determined. We're still asking them, but you know.
Okay, so but it's not Comcast though. It's Verizon.
No, it's Verizon FiOS. Excuse me, I got contractors working downstairs.
That's what I thought.
Okay, we'll get to that on the next item, but let's just finish this one, or 2 items down, I should say. Yep. Okay, so I've got an action item for me to get in touch with Tupper and try to find a venue south of the canal where the problem is, as opposed to in Buzzards Bay where there is no problem. Okay.
Great.
Or at least not on a relative basis. There isn't.
Moving on, number 5, the committee's legal authority to request information from utilities. I have emailed and at least I sent a text to Michael Mail, who is on the he's in the Department of Telecommunications, and he's in the rate setting department. And Brian had made an initial contact with him sort of before, and I have gotten no response. So I'm going to have to bubble this up and go higher up the chain of command to get an answer from them.
Well, the committee doesn't have any legal authority.
Right.
And the town doesn't have any legal authority. So any request for information with respect to like Verizon or even open space, so those have to go through the select board. We can request, but even the town as a whole can't demand that information. We can strongly urge them to give us that information, but we have no legal authority even as a town to get that information.
Okay.
So when I spoke to him, he wasn't 100% certain. It was 0. That's why he was checking with legal whether there was any any at all, and he thought it was not going to be a lot, like very little information rights. So that's why he was checking with legal.
Is there any kind of pressure point or CC list that would maybe loosen them up a little bit?
I think it's just a matter of the capacity constraint. I would just call them and ask them and remind them to check with their legal, because they weren't sure off the top of their head, because they thought it was there might be a little bit of rights, but it wasn't going to be a lot, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, but even so, the actual information will have to do a formal letter request.
Yeah, he's just checking what the like chapter and verse it is, so that we're citing the correct one when we do it. Or when we present it to the select board to make the information request, so we're doing it under the correct authority.
Okay, great.
Right. Okay, the next item is the specifics, excuse me, of information requests to Verizon, Open Cape, Eversource. You know, some of the items there, Brian, I should have put in the agenda your list of specific items that we eventually want to request from these folks. The top of the line is exactly what the plans for rollout for this expansion south of the bridge are for Verizon for FiOS. Somebody had said that they heard informally that it is any place that is served by the 759 exchange. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Jed, your microphone's off.
Sorry, I was told by someone that works for Verizon that he was told that it would be out of the Buzzards Bay CO, where they already have it established, and that would be the 759 exchange, and that is why they are stopping. He calls it at the lights, but at the separation between Pocasset and Monument Beach, because we're served out of the Katomet CO, I believe. Is that correct, Jed?
Yes.
563. So that's why. I mean, they've got the base equipment, I guess. But even then, he said it may be a while before Monument Beach sees this actually happening. But I think they're fishing for customers now, and everybody that I've talked to is very excited about it. I mean, people from people keep asking me, when are they coming to Pocasset?
What has been reliably it's ascertained that the canal is frozen over? I don't know.
Yeah, there's distance limits with the lasers, so that's why it's like if they were shooting it out of basically across from Town Hall, there's eventually a distance where it's not economical for them to go south.
Right, and also that may be the reason why they went so heavily to Gray Gables. Maybe it's a shorter run. I don't know.
You know, potentially a lower tier laser or something. Who knows? Depends on what the kind of gear they have in there.
Mm-hmm. We can surmise that they likely aren't going to want to serve the southern part of Bourne from the co-location facility on Depot Road, because that would be perhaps a little isolated pocket, but who knows?
Also, Open Cape says it's a pretty beat up CO, so maybe they've talked to Verizon and heard that Verizon even doesn't want to use the facility anymore. So everyone seems to be running from that place.
Okay, well, such is life. But in any case, Brian, if you want to start to just draft, you had already started just a list of requests from each of these companies that we can perhaps review the next time, and then start to put into a letter and identify points of contact for each of these, and then we can get Anne Marie to after we have a draft letter to each of these and maybe some idea of what authority or lack of authority we have, then she can present it to the select board to get their opinions on sending.
We already have the FiOS figured out.
I have an email here from Brian that has a list of stuff already. Pole survey from Verizon, building plans, blah, 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 wire service, mobile DSL. Is there something to add to that? List?
I thought we were going to just approach them on the FiOS issue. Ellen Cummings, I think, was the person that you came up with, Brian, who seems to be, let me see what her title is, State Government Affairs, And we thought we would just ask her about FiOS just to try to get an answer. And I was thinking that they might be more forthcoming with that because of the fact that it's already out there. It's not like it's a big secret and we're not trying to pry anything from them. We would just say, hey, we heard this. This is great news. Have you got any kind of a timetable? There's something to let people know. But like I said, I would be willing to draft, a short letter to her just saying, hey, the town would like to know so that we are concerned with trying to improve internet service to underserved areas. And gee, it's great you're doing this. What are your plans?
I would be on board with that because we already have roughly, instead of a generic data request, we kind of know provider by provider what we need. Comcast has statutory stuff written into the cable franchise. Verizon, we've already drafted a list, so John could easily make it go from a list into a letter for the select board to review. Barring, and then we can plug in the whatever statutory things the state gives us. T-Mobile, we haven't really drawn up an info request, but there's only three things from T-Mobile. It's probably request 4G and 5G coverage maps, get a map of their FWA service, and then T-Mobile has been in the news announcing that they're going to start trying to do fiber in some markets. We're likely last in line given the location, but we'd probably want to ask them, given the recent news, do you have any plans to build fiber to the Cape? And that'd be T-Mobile. You can essentially copy and paste that for the other wireless providers, AT&T, Verizon. We already have their list, and then that's it.
Question, this is actually for Anne Marie. Is there any difficulty with regard to the question on FiOS if I just make a call to Ellen Cummings, just do just an introduction and just ask, what the schedule and, what the actual area is, and
That's fine.
okay.
That's fine.
And then what I might do is just explore whether they're interested in at some point giving a wider scale briefing to they report to the select board. So again, she's a government liaison, so she ought to be talking to the select board with us sitting in the audience. Does that sound a reasonable invitation at some point, Anne-Marie?
Yes.
Okay. And then at that point we can have the draft letter and we can read it to her if we have a meeting in the upcoming the next couple of months, say something like that. Okay. Let me just go down the list here. So I've got an action item. Let me scribble this down for me to call her. Okay. The next item is the item 7. I've gotten a response back from the town clerk, Barry Johnson, saying that it's not his responsibility, but I have not yet heard back from Marlene.
I talked to her this morning, actually. I had conversation. She said she had sent everything that she had with respects to contracts. I don't know if she sent them this morning or at another point in time, but I can follow up with her if no one received, if you didn't receive anything, Bob.
Yeah, let me look through emails again. We'll see exactly what came out. If I have not seen that, I will contact you, Anne Marie, and say we haven't gotten it. Brian, look at your emails also, and we'll compare the two of them.
Yeah.
Nothing in my inbox right now.
Or just maybe follow up in an email to her and CC me.
Very good. Very good.
I do know that Open Cape is a contract that she inherited. She does, if there's additional information or something, or you have questions, it's going to be difficult to probably try to get the answers to it unless we talk maybe to someone from Open Cape, or because that was something that Schiavi and Garino had done. So but I guess once you get the contract, then we can review it and take a look if there's additional information. I know Catherine had some additional questions about the contract in general. So yeah, just follow up. Just ask her just to follow up on when we're getting the contract because
and this is going to sound odd, but we might want to request through public records Falmouth's Open Cape contract, because I've talked directly with one of their IT people and they had some ridiculously low rates. So just out of sheer curiosity, we should could get a comparison point, at least on the costings, to make sure town's being treated fairly. Wouldn't be too hard to put a FOIA into Falmouth and request it.
Okay, and that again, that does not have to go through the select board, presumably, right?
No,
Just request it.
That's information gathering.
Yeah. By the way, going back to the information from the Verizon and EverSource, one other kind of piece of information, and Anne Marie, you may or may not know about this, but there was some activity a year or two ago on the select board. Actually, just request to both of those companies to try to repair all of their damaged utility poles around the town. I've had played telephone tag with Peter Meyer to just get his mental recollections about that, and haven't caught up with him yet. He's been busy with other things, but I recall that there were requests to the utilities to describe their status and their plans to repair those, and I don't know what the response that came back was, and he would know that. So I'm just letting you know I'm continuing to trace that down from Peter Meyer. That could be something else that goes into the request that we file with these companies in writing.
And a point of reference, this isn't a problem unique to Bourne. There's a national discussion about this, about how do you handle these pole repairs? Because currently the standard is whoever attaches something next is responsible for the whole pole, which is, arguably unfair given that they should have been maintaining it the whole time. So we're not the first to be asking this question, and it's an ongoing discussion about policy-wise nationwide.
Yeah. The most egregious need, of course, in Bourne is the fact that as you drive around, you've seen a number of these that have been hit in crashes, and they just sister a little piece at the top, a new pole, and sister what's left of the old pole at the top, and try to continue service without moving all of the lines over. And that's problematic, and in fact leave some of the crash victim poles in place.
Isn't that probably an EverSource thing? I mean, you guys might correct me. I mean, my experience, not here, but in Natick, was that EverSource was basically the owner of the pole, and everybody else was connected via them. Basically, they're the ones that have the equipment. They needed a huge truck with an auger to be able to drop one of those things in a crane. Is that normally the case, Jed, around here?
I think they're mixed ownership, or maybe even joint ownership.
When we talked to EverSource's government rep, she said they are typically joint in Bourne.
So that means neither company takes responsibility for it.
So their financial consultants actually tell them that to maximize their pole replacement budget is to just wait until it gets hit by a car, and then they can pawn it off on the car owner's insurance. So they don't fix these unless forced.
Okay, wonderful.
Whatever the regulator sets as the minimum standard of care, that's where they set it.
God help us.
Used to be utility analysts. They respond to the incentives that they're paid for.
Okay. Making notes here, Hank.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Wendy, you've done scribbling?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 8, the listening session on September 28th.
Yes.
Wendy has done a yeoman job. It had me down as the responsibility, but it actually was Wendy. A yeoman job in getting Representative Jaros to contact the folks, as well as Steve Smith, who made a contact in there. Wendy, would you just like to go over that for everybody?
Yeah. First, he pronounces his name Xaros or Xiaros. He says like X, like Xavier. Okay. The only reason I know that is because I called his office to follow up again on this, and he says this is Representative Xaros' office. Okay. I ran into him at the community building when he was there to be part of the support group for the late great housing debate. And I said, we got to get somebody here on, to address our folks. And he sort of took that as a challenge. And I thought I was reasonably sure he would, which is why I phrased it that way. And he came back to me after I poked him a couple of times, saying that he has talked to Steve, and they would set up a satellite listening area at the Bourne Community Center for the meeting they're having at, from 3 to 5 in Hyannis, which is sort of better than nothing, but not a whole lot. And I said, would we be interested in that? And I said, we were going to be meeting this morning and I would put it up for discussion. I think that it sounds like we would be a lot happier if it were on the other side of the canal where all the problems were. On the other hand, his constituents are in Sandwich mostly, so not necessarily so much. It's hard to say. So what do you think?
Short notice. I wouldn't turn down more visibility. And if it's got to be in his district, it's got to be in his district.
How do we advertise this? We've already missed the deadline for the enterprise. Tomorrow we can go on the residents' Facebook page.
Yeah, it's not gonna be well attended. Could we get another date and do a satellite of the second meeting that they're having, and then we have more like what's the second meeting?
What second?
Because they're doing two listening sessions. The Brockton one and then the Hyannis one. When are they? Or past already?
Yeah, the Hyannis one I think is the 28th, which is like a week from today. And so, as Bob says, we have already missed the deadline to get it in the enterprise. Although maybe we can do that. I'll give them a call. But it hasn't been set up yet. So
yeah, this is typical MBI behavior, though. Like, you provide information, be helpful after it's past the deadline of being able to be helpful.
Well, I don't know how much, and that may be sort of in combination with our friendly representatives got many other things on his plate. And so between the two of them, it was like a little bit too late. But if we could get it and we can start putting it out on the Facebook page at least, I hope the select board would put it up in their minutes or their public communications. What else could we do? I'll call the enterprise and ask them if they can sneak it in, but again, it's not set up yet.
So what would that entail, setting it up? Is that the responsibility of Exaro's office or the MBI to approach the town and say, we want to have this satellite meeting, a satellite session?
Why can't we approach the town and say
you can call? So you can call, Wendy, you can call the community building, you can call Chrisanne and say, is there a room available for Thursday, September 28th from 3 to 5, right?
Right.
I preemptively emailed them last night at like midnight.
Yeah.
And to have a satellite session. And then,
they would have to provide the tech support and
if the equipment's in the room, the equipment's in the room. They can't provide staff to host.
Cannot?
No.
They can't? They cannot.
No, they cannot.
Okay.
They cannot provide a staff member to be there and troubleshoot and host. If someone from this committee wants to be in the room and manage the technology in the room, that's fine. But they will not have a staff member assigned from 3 to 5 to manage and operate the satellite session. So yes, Wendy, you can set that up as a scheduled, but someone from this committee will have to be in the room to manage the technology part of it. And the other, and if the there's no space at that time because it is such short notice for the 28th at the community building, you can opt for the library media center through the schools. I mean, that might be a second, but the same situation where whatever they can provide, microphone and there's internet access, etc. However, and there's a screen there as well, but they wouldn't have a staff member there to manage the session.
So somebody would have to learn.
Me.
Yeah, somebody would have to learn how to run it at either of those locations beforehand. With the fellow who usually in the community building, who usually runs around with a cart with the microphones, et cetera, and opens up the computer, right?
Right. Well, they could probably provide. They'll like if you had it in the select board, they can provide. The community building can provide a microphone. They can provide, the internet and that, etc. And there's actually directions on the wall on how to hook things up. But that would be someone from this committee doing that particular setup. They can provide the tools, but it would have to be someone from this committee to set it up.
I received an email back
just
from
can't
them.
Provide the staff. Sorry?
They have space that day. Preemptively, I asked, since it was going to be on discussion today, just do you even have space that day before we went too far? And they say they did. I just got a response back that they have space from 3 to 5 on the 28th if we choose to go forward with this.
At the community building?
Yes, at the community.
Yeah.
Okay. I will volunteer to run that. Okay. I'll learn how to run that. If we can go from there. So it would be through Chris Ann. That's who the contact is.
I forwarded the email.
Right.
Okay,
call her
great.
office. They have the schedule to schedule everything at the community building. And then you'd have to bring a laptop. They wouldn't provide one, but the
Right.
hookup and those tools are all there in place. So
Good.
right. Check in with Chrisanne to let her know what exactly you need in the room. And then Bob, and if I'm the 28th from 3 to 5,
Yes.
Okay. I might be available for that on the earlier side, not the whole thing, but I can be there, Bob, to help you out if that's the case.
Okay. I do appreciate the offer of help.
I'll call the enterprise and see if they can get that in, and I'll call Xaros's office and see if he can spread it out through his contacts as well.
It's very helpful of him to have approached MBI, so we should really try our best to work with him, because working with elected representatiants and with MBI is the formula that other people have told us is the most effective way to deal with the state.
And exactly. The Cape Cod, the commission too, as well. They're in a joint with with MBI as well. So, and Steve Neely is our contact in local contact with the commission. So
we should invite them as well if they are available.
I would, yes. Yeah.
Well, invite as many as we can. Just a proposal from me. I would offer to make just a presentation at that session on behalf of this committee, and I may parrot back some of the statistics that David Still presented in the digital equity, and just say that their impression that Cape Cod is 100% served is wrong, and just state that very carefully. And I've gotten I haven't shown this committee, but I've gotten input from some residents about part of the problem. One neighbor resident sent a photograph of the jumble of 75 ohm cable knots on the utility pole outside his home. Some of them are cut off, some of them are corroded, some of them are bypassed. It looks like a bird's nest, and I want to show that and just say that this is what we're dealing with. And I will personally say that by the way, I pay $270 a month for this, and then show one of the speed test results at 12 MB. So I'll just put that up from my personal
I'd be
perspective.
thrilled if I got 12.
And I think we could formally at that time request that the state adopt the area challenge model under BEAD, because that's the end game here, is to get MBI to approve the NTIA area challenge model. So that's what we're gunning for, because we ultimately need funds to fix the problem, and the only way to get there is that module. So given the short time frame, I think we ask for it at that meeting.
So I'll call Enterprise and Exaro's office. You want to call the MBI and Cape Tech people because you already have relationships with them? Yes, no? Somebody?
Me?
Oh, you mean I don't understand, Wendy. I'm sorry.
To invite them to this presentation at the community building on the 28th of it's from 3 to 5.
I'll do it right now. I'll ask them if they're available.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll call them as soon as we get off the phone.
Wendy, when you contact Callie at the Enterprise, if you could just write something up and say, through the efforts of Representative Steve Xiaros, I'm sorry. I've got too many other Greek folks who begin with the letter key, and they pronounce it as a key. Anyway.
Yeah.
But just say, through the efforts of Representative Exaros, we have
arranged this
secured an additional satellite listening session at the residents who have deficits or whatever invited to come. Upper Cape residents. You probably can get that in all 4 editions.
Yep, that'd be cool.
Great.
Can we also use some mass emails? Bob, do you have like a mass email through Pocasset Village Association? I mean, I have a neighborhood association. I can send out an email to get the word out a little quicker, since it's such a short period of time.
Yep.
So, Bob, you going to do that?
Yeah, I'll do emails. I can get to the PVA. I can probably piggyback the list from the Water Quality Coalition, because they tend to be much broader and cover much more than just Pocasset.
Cool.
They go down. Yep.
Yeah, and I think, Wendy, the Facebook thing will reach a lot of people, because I see a lot of activity there. And a day doesn't go by where my wife doesn't say, "Oh, look at this one," and she forwarded it to me. It's somebody else saying something about their internet doesn't work, or "Are you having an outage? I can't get anything," or "My cable TV is gone."
I'm starting to get a lot of direct messages from Facebook on this stuff.
Yeah, well, you made yourself a moving target.
Well, not even moving. I'm fairly sedentary. I was over at the Mo Beach Little League field yesterday to buy some Cub Scout popcorn at grossly inflated prices, but it's for the kids. And the woman that I got it from said, "Your name is really familiar. Dude, I know you from scouting." And I said, "Well, I haven't been active in scouting for a really long time because my Cub Scout is now 40. But she said, well, and I said, maybe it was from the internet thing on Facebook. She said, "Oh, yeah, that's it. That's really good." And I'm thinking, well, do your speed test, honey. So
exactly.
You just never know. You just never know. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you? Can I just jump in quickly? And I just wanted to apologize for being late and not giving you the letter yet. I talked to Bob earlier. I'm finishing it up right now, and we'll send it over to Bob. So I know that's a priority. And I had go ahead.
Just a question for everybody. Do we want to review it online, or do we want to just postpone this for 1 week here? I know this is something that's a priority for the select board, but we would have to review it online if you send it out right now. Just a question to the committee.
Yeah.
So what I would do is, when I'm done, I'll send it out to everybody and then we can look at it. But I'm wrapping text around what the particular contract language that Jed and I reviewed. And I have one more question about the contract that I want to add in, but I honestly think if I just send this out via email, Anne Marie, can we get it on the agenda for next week?
So that we do have a little time because next week is only SOAR commissioners and it's not select board business, it's SOAR commissioners and we have a hearing. So we don't have agenda items that
Okay.
relative to like
Okay.
on the SOAR commissioner's agenda. So so it would be pushed to the following week anyway. So we do
Okay,
have a
so-
little time if we want to review it at the next meeting. It could go on that
Let's do
subsequent
that.
meeting.
Okay.
If we meet
Okay.
next week, then it's up to you, but just
That's
an
fine.
FYI.
I mean, that works for me if that works for everybody
Yeah,
else.
my personal preference is to do that rather than review it on screen and then try to make changes ad hoc as we go along. So take your time, catch your breath, and then send it out as soon as you can. And
Okay.
Everyone come back to the meeting next week. And I'm going to just postpone that first item. It's going to be postponed till next week. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. And may I ask you
Okay.
one more question about the Wendy for the speed test that people are talking about?
Yes.
Are they which service provider are they using? Like, are we tracking that?
We don't, this committee doesn't track it.
It's an excellent question.
I believe they can.
The Cape Cod Commission one.
They can tell.
I
They
think
can
the
tell
Cape
which one
Cod
it
Commission
comes
one
in on.
asks you who your service provider is. I'll check it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Oh, and the other thing is, I noticed that the MBI link is erroneous. It has the one that's in the ad that they gave us to publish ends in the digit 2, but it's really the digit 1 that works. So I've just put up a correction on that on the Facebook list, and I hope more people are able to do it.
Yeah, that also
Depending on the speed test, they sometimes track the IP address, and the IP address will
Yes.
tell you the provider. So sometimes those questions of asking you what it is to cross-reference if you're actually on what you said you're on. So so whether that question matters it depends on what it's tracking.
I tend to take screenshots and send it to their emails anyway.
Okay. Very good. Very interesting and salient question.
But yeah, good question.
Okay, moving on to the last item I have on the action tracker is the Bridge Advisory Committee. Again, I have been trying to do a call with Peter Meyer just to find out exactly what the schedule for that meeting is, and to tell him that we need to advise him on what we think the needs of the bridge crossings are going to be, and just make him aware that this is something that the Corps is going to have to consider and take responsibility for, at least in their designs, without going into great specifics. But again, I have not caught up with Peter, but that's still on the agenda.
Bob, Anne Marie has her hand up to be recognized.
Yes, Anne Marie.
So what information do you want to bring to the MassDOT?
Well, I think just generally that, again, if they're moving the cables off of first the Sagamore Bridge and then building the Bourne Bridge eventually, although that's on the back burner, that the capacity for whatever conduits, et cetera, they put in for the cable tracings has to be sufficient for the needs for the cable system.
All right.
We
so
don't know what that is yet.
To utilities.
Exactly.
What you want to bring forward is relative. So MassDOT, this committee does not handle utilities at all. They won't have any answers to any questions relative to utilities. That's a parallel track that's happening along with MassDOT. So I can find out contact person for that, because utilities is MassDOT is just doing structurally, right? The structural and the roadways. They won't have any information other than contact person for the utilities. And like I said, it is running, there is a whole separate entities with that, that MassDOT isn't under control, but it's a parallel.
Okay.
It's a parallel program, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I can try to get that contact person for you because I will be at that meeting.
That would be very helpful.
You can kind of head down that path if you want. How receptive they are. Let's hope that they are receptive to listening and hearing in. Maybe we invite them to a meeting via Zoom and to express our concerns as you know, this advisory committee for the town. That would be great if we could do that. But you know, like you know, I mean, we just had this conversation. They do whatever they want, and utility companies, you know, they don't answer to too many people. But I think if we maybe try to push a little bit, and try to get some representation here to talk to our community. I think they should be obligated to do that because of the impact
One
on
would
this
think.
community.
Presumably,
we've crafted the ask, so how to handle the politics insight is fantastic because we know what the town needs roughly, and if they tell us it's too much, we're going to need some engineering funds because the longer I stare at the canal, the harder it is to figure out the routes around the thing. So there's probably going to be a few different discussions on this, but how to handle politics is helpful.
in any case, presumably there's a multi-company, multi-utility, some sort of committee that are talking about this, whatever that entity is, Anne Marie, if you could identify who a point of contact is. Again, this is kind of in ecology, we call it a tragedy of the commons. Geez, everybody needs it, but nobody wants to take responsibility for it. The companies are only going to be interested in providing enough capacity for what they see as their particular needs. You know, if we need dark fiber, as it's called, to go across the canal for a future ISP or a future connection to the internet hotel in Boston, you know, there's not going to be anybody at the table to represent that interest. So we want to make sure that at least gets on the table, if we have to, with a letter to whoever the chair of this utilities committee is. Is that a fair representation, Brian and others, of the issue?
Yeah, it's the one-time opportunity to make it right for the next 50, 60, 100 years, because the conduit will last longer than the fiber. So it's the one chance to get it right for a town that has been split into effectively 4 chunks, one by a forest, one by a military base, and by a canal. So one and only chance to fix connecting all portions of the town.
Don't forget, this is also going to be connections for the rest of the other 14 Cape towns and maybe the islands. So again, capacity needs to be allowed for a lot of future growth all the way out there, given the extensiveness of the deficits.
And the military part might play a big part in it, because I mean, you know, you've got paved paws over here, and I had the privilege of having an inside tour once, and there's some extremely high level stuff going in there, which is it's very high level and very confidential. There was a lot of stuff they wouldn't let me see, but the point is, it's a major government place of work, essentially, an outpost. And so I don't know what they do for intercommunications. A lot of it might be satellite, but certainly
I would expect so. Yeah.
Being able to provide them with fiber would be very helpful.
The base?
Yeah.
Oh, they have I think 2 or 3 connections to Open Cape's backbone, and I would just presume that they lease a dark fiber strand so that no one's touching it. Would be how I would handle it if I were them.
So pave pause is not part of the base.
No.
It's a separate. It's not
pause,
part of the base.
not the base.
Right.
Pave pause, not the base.
Right. Pave pause is not the base. It's part of, believe it or not, it's part of the Space Force.
Yeah.
And it's basically it's an early warning radar.
It's over Horizon radar. They can look at like half the Earth. Yeah, and they're tracking everything.
Yeah. So it's totally separate from the base. Part of the DoD.
Right. It's kind of like Cheyenne Mountain is, you know, with SAC, except on a different scale. But the point is that, I mean, any even backup is important, I think. You know, basically, okay, Open Cape fails, we have this or that. So I'm saying, I'm sure someone is thinking about if we're going to go over the bridge, we need to make sure that that everything military is taken care of in triplicate. You want to have as much redundancy as possible in that type of situation due to any kind of an emergency that you might have. So,
yeah, don't you think they've already taken care of that?
I don't know. I'm just saying
more
that
money than God.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's the thing: as they build the new bridges and the old ones come down, the infrastructure is going to have to change.
I guess I don't think they depend on the bridge.
You think they're
I would be astonished if they don't have totally
the likelihood they would
and
talk to us
satellite system
is minuscule.
Nil. Yeah.
Okay, I was just offering it up because I don't know. As an ex-broadcaster,
yeah,
we always look for some redundant paths.
You think they're going to let the Bourne town C10?
No. I'm just saying.
Hey,
saying,
what kind of plans have you made for redundancy?
Well, no. What I'm saying is that they would have interest in getting infrastructure over the bridges.
Right, but they don't need to talk to us to get that.
They won't even talk about it. They won't even acknowledge that exists.
They've probably approached several companies under shell corporations and rented it in the name of some corporation and diverted it. There's no way we will, in any reality, figure it out. I would have it hidden through 7 shell companies to make it literally impossible. There's probably some guy sitting there pretending to be a secretary at some little shop right next to it. That's probably got the connection going to there under that business name.
I just see that
you're never going to find it.
They've been addressing the rail trail thing directly, and that's what brought it to mind is the fact that they're responding to that, and that's pretty small change for them. So,
what's the address this thing is nearby? I'm trying to find the thing.
Yeah, we need to move on. I don't think this is worth discussing.
Just pointing out that it might be another way, another path. You just get interest in getting infrastructure over the bridge. That's all.
Anne Marie, if you find the name of the contact, I will contact that person and find out who is sitting at their table, and find a way we can just decide how to influence that from that point. Okay. Again, going down, that's the action tracker. In terms of discussion items, the area service challenge model, in terms of its status and way forward. Again, I will make in my statement at the listening session that the MBI should adopt the NTIA model. It's NTIAs, right?
Yeah, we should invite Thomas Hahn, since he's an expert on his team's the expert on that, and they're good
tell me
people.
What that is?
So the NTIA made all the BEAD rules and then had a few optional ones. And so since it's implemented at the state level, the states have to adopt the rules. And I think the states can do whatever they want, but NTIA effectively set it up so that they could copy and paste something that was already going to work. And so this area challenge module is one of the optional items that they don't have to take. And what it is it allows a place on the map that already shows connections to prove that the connections don't work very well, which is exactly us, where we're on the Cape, where there is Comcast is here, but it doesn't work up to advertised standards, and we're ready to prove this as a fact. Okay. And all we've got to do is take 6 places, so 6 houses, 6 businesses, 6 units, run, I believe, hardwired speed tests and prove that there's an issue. And then the entire census tract becomes challenged. And then the existing incumbent has to prove that we're wrong somehow. And there's a process to do this to try to minimize the ability for them to cherry pick times a day. And so all we need to do is 6 houses and, call it just one census block, and the whole area is up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a time limit on that, as I recall? Were we concerned about that?
There's all kinds of restrictions to make it difficult, whereas we have to take the data all in the same time period, and they specify all this, and it's still a hard process, to be fair. But right now, it's not available at all unless MBI accepts the process. And so we're trying to get them to accept it, since this is good for the entire Cape Cod. And so that's why this is the kind of thing we try to work with the Cape Cod Commission, try to work with the Tech Council try to get as many partners as possible because this moves the needle for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
This may be a
Okay.
stupid question, but if they require hardwire speed tests, what does that do for all the people that aren't hardwired?
We would plug in boxes at the people that say they have the worst of the worst connections. So we'd have to physically send someone to their house, plug in equipment, and track it correctly. So we probably have to plan to do double or triple that because we'll probably run into issues with various houses for one reason or another. So probably need more boxes.
And with that, Brian, are we we're going to keep, when we get that information, we're going to log which provider they're using, correct?
Since we would be challenging removing Comcast from the FCC map would have the highest impact.
Okay. So just the Comcast.
Just Comcast.
Okay, fair enough.
They don't consider fixed wireless, which is basically the mobile signal to the home internet, as reliable anyway. So there's no really a need to challenge that under BEAD.
Okay.
Satellite doesn't really count under BEAD, so there's no real need to go there. DSL is too slow, typically, unless you're particularly close to the point. So the only thing that's going to move the needle really is challenging Comcast, who, because of their presence, blocks us from most funding.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
And to do that, we then have to buy or lease those test boxes, correct? And we're talking about what, at least six?
At least six per census block. And I think there was 4 or 5 census blocks townwide. We know the Buzzards Bay area probably won't survive a challenge since it's both FiOS and Comcast there.
Yeah, but the census block for that is bigger than just Buzzards Bay, so it goes off towards the east somewhat. So,
probably worth doing it in each section. So we go to the worst.
Yeah.
So basically, the goal is to hit the worst part in the census block because unlike Comcast, we're allowed to cherry pick. So we can cherry pick the locations. They, I believe, have to be randomized, but don't quote me on that since I'm not an expert on how this thing works. That would be a Thomas question.
We'll start right on Kenwood.
Well,
my
commission says
door
seasonal and by
open.
the water.
Yeah.
Seasonal and close to the water.
Thomas Hahn, again, what's his affiliation, Brian?
He is part of the Education Superhighway. They're primarily doing Wi-Fi solutions to low-income housing. And so, we at some point need to get them on the horn with the Bourne Housing Authority because their equipment would be perfect for any of the low-income housing the town has. And knowing what it needs to power it should be something we should be aware of as we're doing any fiber plans, since that's a good way to cheaply get internet to a lot of people with need. It would only work in more dense layouts than most of Bourne.
Okay, but basically he's a resource to help get these tests done. Okay.
Yeah.
Any more on the area challenge model?
Not much more to say other than get it approved, and then we can go at the details. We might need a little bit of funding for the boxes, though, so I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
If we don't have enough time to get it into town budget, we probably have to appeal to the business community for, we're not talking about a lot of money here, 100, 150 for a box, times 6, times 5, a few small, low 1,000 or 2 or 3. So probably could get a donation somewhere for that kind of money.
Okay. And by the way, just in terms of getting over the hump to get MBI to adopt this, another letter from from Representative Exaros would be probably helpful here, since he clearly was able to get there here very quickly. Let's try it again. And again, the statistics we've got so far from the commission are just are dynamite in showing that their presumption is wrong. Okay, moving forward. Item B, high-level planning and costing of the Bourne network. Brian, you've done the bulk of this. You've got the floor.
Yeah, I'm on the second draft. I'm finding which probably all the providers have found that it's actually very challenging given the canal there to try to figure out the costs. Or just right now, I'm just trying to figure out the miles of fiber. Since running along the canal, there's certain areas with houses and certain areas that without. And so to try to plan a route to minimize the amount of fiber running around the canal is actually looking kind of tricky. So we have a rough estimate of miles and probably view it more like a worst case scenario. And so I sent the roughs off to Whip City to look at, and also sent it back to my GIS person to do a few more redrafting. But ultimately, the closer we get to construction and all that, we're going to have to get higher and higher quality estimates, given some of the difficulties in trying to figure out where fiber has to be. It's tricky. It's a little bit tricky.
Now, to do pro formas on this further on, and how are passings, in other words, potential customers, going to be estimated?
So thankfully, there is the FCC maps are down to the parcel level. So potentially we could take the parcels, drop them, and get exact numbers with some work. Passings are going to be figured out in a couple of ways based on how the network's designed. So it's going to be where do everything got to connect to will affect the distance. How we connect the different main points of the network will affect the amount of fiber. The amount of places that are underground will affect the cost. So it's one of those things we just have to continue to get higher and higher quality amounts of data. Right now, we're working off pole data that's just aerial poles. So we'd like to request the pole data from Verizon. So we actually have the poles down to their pole numbers and exact counts to try to keep, increasing the level of data here. Eventually, we'll need to have some kind of engineering design to figure out what's the ideal layout to minimize the distance. And eventually, we'll have to actually look at the exact poles to see along what routes are we going to run into problems where we have to go underground because the poles are so bad or the conditions are no good. So right now, there's a very high level. How many miles do we got to probably hang?
So Bob, the question of sort of how many customers do you end up with, we can look at Taunton, and they basically got 30% of the town to come over to their network. I think that's reasonable.
That's realistic, yeah.
Right. And we know that Tony can give us when he's here a lot of input because they have the same issue in Westfield.
Well, here's the difference, though. So Taunton has Comcast offering a triple play. This is the discussion they explained to us, is that it's hard to get people to drop the triple play with cable TV to come over to an internet-only package. That's their right. And a lot of the towns that Whip City Fiber was dealing with had nothing. So it's not really, I don't think it's a good comparison.
I see.
Okay.
Penetration is like 50 when there's nothing, and it tends to be more like 30 when there is competition.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of what the numbers I've seen too.
Okay, be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see what Open Cape gets for pickup for their offer in Buzzards Bay when there are already two other competitors on the ground.
Right. Well, to keep in mind there, so Open Cape typically only does MDUs, and they tend to get a pretty large amount of them because they're already wired up. It's easy for them to join.
As a matter of fact, and I'll share this with you because I got this last night. I don't know if you can see this, but this is an email I got from them. They're going to be appearing at some CCYP Back to Business Bash tonight, and they are again promoting stuff. They're saying, see what's possible. What you can't see here, and I can forward the website. Here's this guy here. They're talking a lot about connecting businesses. They're trying to reach out to businesses, but they are also talking about private, but they're being very circumspect about exactly how much private. They seem to really be reaching out to businesses. So, but they're doing this, and I mean, I guess I'm on their mailing list now because I got this last night, and they're talking about 99.9% reliability, et cetera, and and 10 gig service. So I never saw any of this publicity from them before. So, and here's the thing here: Open Cape and Sunday Ticket for bar and restaurant owners. So they're trying to expand, but it's unclear as to what
that's YouTube TV. But anyway, I think the point is, Bob, that we'll probably get, maybe 30%, maybe a little more to come over to a internet only package. And I think those are the numbers you'd want to kind of look at. It would also, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the ultimate target for the information that like Brian is putting together, and that what was the company in Falmouth that did the high level study? Tilson. Again, is to again provide that information to somebody like Matrix Design Group or some other provider to come in and say, okay, here's what the layout would need to be. Here's the number of passings potentially as customers. This is what the business model will be. So you through your own funding or whatever, come up with bonding to pay for this, and they would work their pro formas out on what their payback is and how they amortize whatever loans they take out, which is how they work every place else. But if we have this information for them beforehand, it makes it much easier than for them having to start from scratch. And I think what Whip City is providing is at no cost to us is really going to be a resource that we can use to shop this system around.
Yeah, and just consider the Whip City estimate will be lower quality than what Tilson did, since it's using less clean data. We haven't gone out in the field and all that, so it's more like a finger in the wind, roughly, to the 10 million what it's going to be to do this.
But it's plus or minus 20% on that order. I think they
could be more, could be plus or minus 30.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, it's a target. Again, we've got real rural areas in the town where passings are few and far between. So, but those are the people who might want it more. So that's the the dilemma for anybody who's going to come in and try to offer this service as a they're trying to make money on it, obviously. Okay, well, I think that's great. I think this is moving forward. Thank you, Brian, for taking the lead on this. And that is the end of my agenda here. Okay.
Do we have any future agenda items for next time around, or just continuation of all this?
The one that I will do is, as I said, I will offer to make a presentation at this listening session remote site, as well as to try to run it. And what I want to do is maybe get you at least bullet points of the presentation that we can discuss next Thursday morning. Maybe even I'll do if I've got control of a computer, I'm not going to give up an opportunity to put up a PowerPoint. So I'll have a slide deck together. The very brief one. Who knows? He may say, well, we'll give each speaker 30 seconds. You never know how Baldino and company will decide to control this thing. But anyway, as I said, talking generally from the perspective of the town, but also, putting my personal information in there about, again, showing this horrible slide. I'll pass that around to everyone just for information of this bird's nest on a utility pole near us here.
You see that all the time around here. The time. It's all 40 years old at least. It's terrible. I think it's dangerous.
You might want to get a couple, a picture of one of those cistern cracked up poles. Also, there's one down right near Depot on County Road that we pass all the time when we go over to Somerset Creamery. And you're welcome to take the screenshot from my my download speed thing, which is just enough to bring tears to your eyes. So.
Yeah, send that over to me, and again, I'll put a few of these up. I've got a couple of horrible ones too, screenshots, and I can probably breadboard a 6 or 7 slide summary together, and anyway, but we'll have something for everybody to look at on next Thursday morning. By the way, the week after, I forgot to mention the September 5 presentation and meeting. I am going to be in West Virginia. and that is a veritable internet desert. But my son-in-law assures me that he's got Starlink working, which I will test beforehand. And if that doesn't work, I will go to the beautiful mountaintop library and sit there and share the meeting from there. So, and Jed, I don't think there'll be a problem, but you'll have the agenda. If that connection drops for me for any reason, I'll hand the baton to you and just take over.
Sure. I plan to be at the meeting next week, and also on October 5th.
Yep. Yeah, we ought to decide, do we want to have multiples from the committee speak, or if nobody else speaks, we've requested this, and we'll take as much platform time as we can if the connection is open. I think we should.
So what are we talking about now? The MBI listening session, or
the MBI session next week?
I'll be at a medical appointment that day. It's impossible.
Yeah, I can't make it on the afternoon. I'll be at this committee meeting next Thursday morning.
Okay. Sorry, misunderstood.
That's what I meant. I'll be at the committee meeting next Thursday morning, and I'll be at the committee meeting on October 5th.
Very good.
I can probably make the listening session.
I think
it'll be online,
I should be
presumably.
able to do that.
Yeah,
it'll be online.
Yeah, so
you're online.
I can make that.
It better be if they just have a one pipeline to this remote location without having it online for anybody who's out there. I think that's that says that they've got their finger on the scale here.
Yeah,
that's actually a great question. Like, is there only one remote location and it's that realm, or is it going to be online? Yeah. We should probably circle back and ask them directly.
Who's going to do that?
You want to ask Wendy, since you're in the chain with Representative Zaros and MBI there? Ask him if it's.
I don't have any contacts at MBI, but I can call him and ask him. I don't have Zaros isn't going to know.
Right.
So it would be Baldino. Since Zaros is involved, probably just email Baldino directly, since he's a consummate politician. Okay. So just go right to him on this now that the rep's in on this.
Okay, I don't know Baldino. Name, email address, something like that.
I'll forward it to you. It's in the chain.
Yeah, he's in the email chain there. Wendy, if you could take the lead on that.
All right,
and just you can confirm that that we've got the Veterans Community Center lined up. They do have an internet connection. We will have somebody there running it, namely me, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've looked at some of those meeting announcements. I don't remember if there was any kind of a Zoom link or anything, which seems kind of strange, but that may be the way they're doing it.
I just forwarded you the chain, and I pulled out his email and contact info. Just be really delicate with him, because others have made enemies with them. So it's better to be careful with that relationship, since they're very understaffed. So we don't want to lose the attention of MBI.
Right.
So do I just say something like, it's wonderful that we're going to, have this satellite session. Can you give me the Zoom information?
Yeah. Is it going to also be on Zoom? Is it going to be, since it's such short notice, we might have difficulty getting people physically to that room alone? Is this also going to be simultaneously broadcast on Zoom?
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing to point out is, again, timing is everything, but just say that the Bourne Bridge is under construction, so there people might have to zoom in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay.
And we're trying to be positive, because the MBI is at least starting to try to pay attention to the Cape, which in the past they didn't at all. So we got to at least be complimentary of the improvement that they are making towards at least beginning to address the issue here.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, the team,
we appreciate this so deeply.
Yeah, the team in Falmouth says in the past the contact was 0. Yeah. So it's an improvement.
Okay, then I won't tell them that. No. Here, you didn't do for Falmouth, but thanks for working with us.
The people have applied enough pressure on them that they are beginning to pay attention. So we just got to keep it that way.
Okie doke.
And Bob, again,
Okay.
if you need any help with the Verizon thing, drafting a letter regarding the files, I'd be happy to draft something and submit it that we can look at. Be sure.
Okay. With FiOS, I'm just going to make a phone call.
Right, I'm saying right. If Ellen doesn't respond, then I'll be happy to draft something.
Fantastic.
The selectmen can approve and send off.
Just an FYI, the MBI website does have a, if you register, it does have a register for virtual webinar. And the other two are for in-person, but it does, there is a link there to register for a virtual webinar.
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't quite hear you. You broke up.
On the MBI listening session for September 28th, there's a registration link. And you can register in person in Hyannis, in person in on Martha's Vineyard, but there's also a link to register for virtual webinar.
Oh, good. Okay. I'll check that out.
And I'm going to try to figure out if I go to the real thing, since that's going to be high impact, we might want to send someone directly to Hyannis to meet them face to face.
I was planning on doing that. You want a carpool?
Let me see if I can get down to the Cape and let me sort that out, because I've been pretty bandwidth constrained lately, but that's a very high ROI activity, is getting it lobbying directly to MBI.
Yep.
Great. And if obviously since we requested a satellite meeting, it behooves us to have a representative in the room at the satellite. So that'll be me.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All righty then. Well, that'll be fun.
Okay. Well, we'll get the details of who's going to be where on the afternoon at our next Thursday morning meeting.
All righty. Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Anne Marie, did you have something? Saw your hand go up.
Second, the motion to adjourn.
Saying goodbye.
Oh. Okay. Thank you all very much. Very expeditious. Okay. See you next Thursday.
Yep.
Okay. Goodbye, all.
Bye-bye.